and just welcome everybody for being here and prioritizing this time and allowing yourselves this moment, this next several moments to settle in. So, friends, my name is Julia. I'm one of the facilitators of the Spokane Sangha. And for the month of June, we are going to be exploring the theme of love. And we're going to explore love as the true and sincere, full mind, body, spirit aspiration to want someone else's happiness and also our own. That includes our own. To sincerely look at whoever we're encountering, whatever situation we are encountering, and to really cultivate a motivation and an attitude that says, may you be happy. May you have the causes and conditions for happiness. And yesterday I brought forward the question of what is happiness for you? What does that mean to you? For me, it means a certain kind of ease, a certain kind of clarity in my mind. And with that ease and clarity comes a capacity to be with whatever is arising. When I feel annoyed, for whatever the reasons I feel annoyed, I can be with that annoyance without projecting it out into the world or superimpose it onto other people in a way that can cause harm. And how that works is if I'm not paying attention to my annoyances, then what happens is the tone of my voice changes, the words that I use change, I can get kind of prickly, and I put that out into the world toward other people, and it creates harm. So when I am in a place of contentment, when I am in a place of solidity and happiness, even when I'm experiencing a difficult arising, an afflicted mind state like annoyance, I can keep that to myself and say, wow, I'm working with annoyance. And I've got this person in front of me who is stirring that up and making me aware of it. And the last thing I want to do is harm this person. So I'm going to keep this annoyance and these feelings and thoughts to myself and work on that. And that, my friends, is an act of love. It is a way of intentionally not putting harm into the world. Here's another example. This morning I was telling friends, just as the meeting was beginning, that I had one of those outdoor grill kitchen things delivered to my farm. This is my husband's new summer baby. And this baby weighed 900 pounds in a giant wooden crate. And the delivery guy, so nice, was moving it through the rig, kind of getting it to the very end of the platform. And I just couldn't watch. I was like, because, there were aspects of this big giant thing teetering, and I just was so anxious, I walked away. Now, had I chosen to stay and had I chosen to be with that anxiety, the risk is I could have panicked and been like, watch it. Oh no, what are you doing? And voicing all of that panic that this guy didn't need to hear. He would have picked up on my panic, which would have made him panic or doubt or question his confidence. He knew what he was doing. He didn't need me to interfere with my anxiety. So what I did was I walked away. And I just checked myself and was like, look at this. Look at all this anxiety arising over a situation I have no control over. Active love, active love. So this comes up in many, many, many different ways in our lives. And it is no accident that I'm bringing it forward today, particularly since we spent last month talking about boundaries. And boundaries are a very tricky and tender thing to work with because depending upon how we're creating a boundary, how we're communicating a boundary, it can feel unloving, both as the person who is creating the boundary and the person receiving the boundary. And so today I want to talk about boundaries as an act of love. And I want to be very specific to some malicious mischief that's been happening in the Spokane Sangha. And so I do want to make this a little bit on the personal side and let everybody know what we are doing as facilitators to address the mischief and what I'm asking you to do as participants to sit with the mischief and to recognize it and be with it and know that you are safe, you are held, and this is practice. So what's been happening, and it sort of started last week, it's been happening since Zoom really became a popular thing, and that is that Zoom people will enter a Zoom meeting and they have a motivation to be disruptive in any way they can. So they put on their video and they feature ugly things. They will unmute themselves if a facilitator doesn't control that, and they will spout out various things. Last week we had some people who were using the chat, and they were targeting specific people, or they were targeting everybody in the group, and saying hurtful, disruptive things. It's a very, very disruptive, sabotaging way of behaving. And it happened again yesterday. We had a person come in and they felt entitled to police everybody's shares. And so they sent individual messages to individual Sangha members saying, you need to talk less, fewer words, those types of things. And it's really unsettling, and it's counterproductive and uninspiring. And the motivation behind it is to be disruptive. So what do we do? How do we sit with that? How do we work with that in a loving way? The first thing to do is to remember, oh my goodness, this person is suffering. When we are suffering, we tend to act out in all kinds of ways, right? We do. Just like me. When I'm suffering, I can get pouty and whiny and needy and demanding. I can also get incredibly antagonistic. I've been told when I'm working on my tractor and I'm having to do something a little bit hard and it's frustrating, I have apparently a very convincing resting bitch face. I didn't know. That energy goes out into the world. So I'm really careful about that, because on my farm, the last thing I want to do to my land is like put resting bitch face energy onto my land. So I'm now like really working on making sure I have a smile. Just like me, this person is suffering. So If we can get that as our foundation, it helps because the mind is so quick to spin off on either or black and white thinking. Hey, this is the way we behave good. This is the way we behave bad. You're behaving bad, and that's bad, and I need to tell you about it. And that's okay that that can arise, but let's not make that the governing way of reacting. Let's check our reaction and make that internal response that's like, oh, this is suffering. Got it. Just like me, this person is suffering. As an act of love, I can send this person my motivation that they be free of suffering. Oh, friend, may you be free of confusion, of malicious mischief, of the desire to be disruptive and sabotaging, of the confusion that has you believing this is a way of getting attention. The confusion that you're harboring that says negative attention is better than no attention. Oh my goodness, may you be free of that. And instead, may you experience the conditions that bring ease and clarity and contentment. The other thing I want everybody to remember, another sort of layer of foundation, is one of the reasons why we have as a precept in a Buddhist inspired approach to recovery that we will do our very committed best to abstain from intoxicants, because when we have intoxicants on board, we risk being unskillful. We risk distorting our capacity to access these tools. We risk being unwise and returning to old habits and patterns of reactivity and impulsivity. And so when we have somebody who is engaging unskillfully, we can, and particularly in a recovery meeting, we can make a pretty critical assumption that that individual is probably under the influence of substances. And we've all been there. We all know what it's like to hurt. I assume we have all been there. I assume we all know what it's like to unintentionally, unconsciously hurt people because of our own habit energy. Just like me, may this person be free of their attachment to substances, and may they find ease and clarity working with their relationship to habit energy so it is less negative, less harmful, less impactful. So those are the two foundations that we're standing on instead of our typical reactivity in the mind. And this foundation, these two things, somebody is suffering just like me, and somebody is probably under the influence just like I have been. Those two layers of foundation speak to the heart. And together, then what we can do is bring forward something called citta, bodhicitta. And for anybody taking notes, you spell that Bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is when the mind and the heart come together in harmony. What the mind knows and thinks and believes and what the heart feels come together. Most of the time, most people are up in the head, And we're reacting based on our stories and our thoughts, our judgments, our preconceived notions, and our perceptions. When you go on the chat and somebody's misbehaving, the first thought is they're not supposed to do that. And the heart may feel kind of sad, like, ow, that hurt to receive that. I'm okay, and that hurt. And that shouldn't have happened. And that is true. And when we step into that feeling heart, that wounded heart, that heart that's so tender and hurting, and we remind it, hey, this is suffering, just like me. Hey, this is probably substance misuse, just like me. Then we can tame those thoughts that begin to race and begin to seek justice and vengeance, and I'm going to tell this person off, or I'm going to react in the same way. And we can do something different. And so what comes from the heart and what comes from the mind can be harmonized and strengthened so that our engagement with this person comes from a place of love, strong, firm, clear. And this is where I'm going to make it real, in that if this happens again in one of our meetings, I would like whoever is receiving, for example, a message from one of the Sangha members in the chat, I would invite you, and really I beg you, to send Lo or me a private message letting us know who this person is, who sent you the message, and what the message was. And that way we'll have an opportunity to talk to this individual or remove this individual later. And I would also ask that for the time being, that you sit with your experience with it. You don't have to react to it publicly. You just sit with it privately, carefully, compassionately. Send us a message, and we'll take care of it to the best of our ability. One of the people who has been consistent in doing this will send private messages to more than one person and then leave the meeting. So we don't really get a chance to interact with this individual. But part of what, by bringing it forward, by ventilating it a little bit, we decrease and deflate the energy around being secretive. This person is sending private messages to be secretive. They're here under an alias, usually. They're sending private messages. They want it to be under the radar. And so what we're doing in a very gentle and loving way is we're bringing this to the light. We're opening it up a little bit in an environment that is intentionally not shaming, intentionally not calling anyone out, but is looking at the behavior. And then we are going to build boundaries to limit this person or person's capacity to be unskillful. So one of the things that we're going to do, we may have to do, and it's probably going to be a temporary thing, but sadly, one of the things that we have to do for the sanctity of the entire space is deactivate the chat. Just not let people use chat. And that can feel hard, like, oh, I like the chat. And why is one person ruining the fun for everybody? And that's one way to look at it. And another way to look at it is what we are endeavoring to do is minimize the conditions that allow someone to be unskillful. And that is an act of love. And as a community, if we all understand what that motivation is, and if we all come together and respect that this is why we're doing what we're doing, then we are all contributing to creating the conditions that don't allow someone to act unskillfully. We're keeping the bumpers up for somebody who is suffering. And that is an act of love. It may not feel like it for the person who's confused. It probably won't. And that's where we can go back to our own experience and go, wow, when has somebody confronted me or put the bumpers up or set down a boundary and I was mad because I just wanted to do what I wanted to do and they weren't letting me and I got angry with them. And maybe what they were doing was loving me. I didn't want them to, I hated when they asked me for my keys. Maybe that's your experience. Somebody saying, yeah, I think you've had too much to drink and let me have your keys. For most people, the first response isn't, okay, thank you for loving me. It's, no, I'm fine. I can drive. And then we get defensive and mad. And maybe what we can now think about is, oh, this person was looking out for me. This person was trying to love me. It didn't feel like that at first because I had a layer of confusion covering the lens of my reality. Friends, we are practicing in Sangha not to create a homogenized space where everybody's in line, everybody's behaving perfectly, there are no disruptions, everything's fine, I'm perfectly safe in the perfect. We are creating a Sangha where we work with disruptions in a safe environment. We practice when the disruptions aren't really that difficult. We're physically not threatened. We may be annoyed and hurt. We may have a pretty fragile heart and mind in our recovery right now, where these kinds of disruptions can be very dysregulating and unsettling. That absolutely can happen, which is why we're addressing it so succinctly here. And we're okay, because we're not pretending it's not happening. We're not brushing it under the rug. We are addressing it, but we're doing so with the motivation to be loving, not punitive. And the reason for that is because this represents life. Life is going to dish this out for us. We're going to encounter difficult people. We're going to encounter being challenged. We're going to encounter being reactive. We're going to encounter being unskillful. We're going to encounter wanting to be forgiven for our own mistakes. We're going to encounter situations where we can be forgiving and lenient. This is what it means to grow and mature with the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. It is such a privilege to be able to bring this forward to you in this way, meaning this has been my practice. This is the way I interact with people. This is the way that I have spent years creating community. This is the way that I want to actively engage with life using Buddhism as my foundation and my spiritual guideposts. It is an honor to be able to share this with you and to practice with you. It is profoundly humbling and inspiring to see these practices be adopted and used in such beautiful ways. Frankly, you all elevate everything I do and say, and I am so happy to be here. And I'd like to conclude our practice today in this particular Dharma offering by simply breathing together. And then I'd love to invite everyone to share and we can hear from each other how this all landed today. So let's just breathe together, breathing in and out for just a minute or two. Breathing in. Breathing out. Maybe breathing in with a mantra, may I be happy and have the conditions for joy and ease. And breathing out, may you be happy and have the conditions for joy and ease. Breathing in, may all who suffer in this moment and the moments to follow have joy and ease. And breathing out that joy and ease. Ah. Alrighty, friends, let's go ahead and end this beautiful practice with a dedication of merit. And I just want to repeat Michelle's wisdom today. And what she said was, it really does work. And the it is kindness, awareness, consideration, thoughtfulness. It works. It works to create feelings of connection. It works to generate conditions of ease. It works to smooth out a sharp edge of discomfort. It works. It also takes time. Michelle's been gathering in the Spokane Sangha online consistently for 4 years. It's a long time. It is a lifetime's journey. And one of the things I ask myself all the time is, what else do I want to be doing with my time? There's enough violence and hostility and aggression in the world. The least I can do is be someone who puts a little bit less of that in the world. A little less chaos, a little more connection, a little less confusion, and a little more understanding, a little less hostility and a little more compassion. These practices that have been around for thousands of years give us access to this way of being in the world. May you grow slowly and reverently into these practices. May you find how they fit for you, and may you have the courage to express them in the world as you. We need you. May you enjoy this beautiful day, and may you know that you leave such an amazing impression in this community of sacred belonging, healing, and joy. We'll see you next time, friends. Namaste.